Hey, Linda. Check, check. Can you hear me?
I hear you, Rocky. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. It is 6:15 on August 26th, and we will call our regular board session to meet. Miss Miriam, can we have roll call, please? Here. Here.
Here. Dr. Alicia Vink,
Present.
Dr. Laura Diaz is not present.
Thank you very much. The four of us here, we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and proceed with the meeting. Normally at this point, we would do the Pledge of Allegiance, but we are going to start with a new hopeful tradition. And I believe it was our Dr. Vink that asked for this addition to our board meeting. So in full respect of that, I appreciate it. And I hope this is the appropriate time to do this.
Well, we don't know, but we're going to do the best we can and move it as we need to.
Absolutely. Going forward, in partnership with the tribes who called Phoenix their first home, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. Thank you, everyone. Can we please have the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, Miss Jeffrey, are you going to do it? Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Quintana. So at this time, we will vote on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Alicia Vink, so moved.
Thank you.
Jessica Bueno, second.
Perfect. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Miriam, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo. Yes. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor, the motion passes. So who will be presenting first today?
Madam Chair, are you ready to move on to awards, recognitions, and announcements?
Yes, please.
All right. So we are going to make a slight change to how this is presented for lots of reasons. The biggest being that nobody wants to hear me talk for 10 or 15 minutes straight. So we have 6 items in our agenda tonight, and we have broken them up by board member. Dr. Gonzalez, I believe you're doing one. So as I understand it, Mr. Carrillo, you'll be reading number 1. Mr. Trujillo, you'll be reading number 2. Dr. Vink, number 3. Ms. Bueno, number 4. I'll be reading number 5. And Deborah, you'll be reading, Dr. Gonzalez, you'll be reading number 6. So Mr. Carrillo, would you lead us in the celebrations? And then, of course, if you have any additional celebrations, anything you'd like that you've seen that you'd like to expand on, please feel free.
All right, thank you, Dr. Weeks. So reading the first celebration, thanks to the entire Phoenix #1 team for a great start to the new school year. It is great hearing and seeing children and staff in our schools again. I especially want to thank the plant services and MIS team for their endless efforts over the last 3 weeks. It has been an incredibly busy few weeks as we were faced with air conditioning issues, storm damage, including power outages, AC outages, and internet and phone lines being down. I would also like to thank the Kenilworth team and some of our plant service employees for ensuring families got to school safely after a water main break on 7th Avenue rerouted traffic through the neighborhood by Kenilworth, which impacted student drop-off and pickup for the entire week. Members of our team hurried over to Kenilworth to help with traffic, escort students across the street, welcome them when they were late because of the traffic delays, and to show our families we care in some of the most challenging of times. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, and kudos to the transportation team. Our second celebration is the Arizona Department of Education started a partnership with the Chef Ann Foundation, Lifetime Foundation, and Whole Kids Foundation to support improving school meals and Phoenix Elementary School District's Child Nutrition Department. Oh, my apologies. The Child Nutrition Department was one of the 10 schools in Arizona selected to participate in a 2-year program to increase and sustain an operation rooted in fresh, whole ingredient-based, scratch-cooked school food program. We are excited to work with a team of experts to provide nutritional scratch-made meals for our children.
Phoenix number 1 is partnering with Concentric to offer COVID-19 pool testing at all of our schools beginning this week. With the number of COVID cases continuing to increase in our community, this is one way we can help reduce the spread of COVID-19 within our schools and community and help keep our students and families healthy.
As COVID-19 cases continue to increase, we'd like to thank the Phoenix Union High School District for launching their Spread Not Love COVID-19 Student Edition vaccination events throughout the summer. Anyone 12 years of age and older is eligible to get the vaccine, and Phoenix Union is now offering vaccinations at all their schools throughout the months of August and September. A special thanks is also extended to Earl and Mary Rose Wilcox for hosting vaccination events at Grant Park, which are still being offered every Tuesday from 4 to 8 p.m. throughout the month of August. For a list of vaccination location dates and times, visit our COVID-19 information page on our website at phoenixschools.org.
As we start the new school year, our teachers found creative ways to help our students to help make our students more comfortable wearing face coverings at school. One Kenilworth teacher showed students a video of children all around the world wearing face coverings. Others created bulletin boards showing self-portraits of our students supporting their favorite face coverings. And when it's pulled down, you see their smiling faces. Thank you to our families and students for helping to keep those inside our schools healthy by masking up.
The district is rebranding and changing the name of our special education department. In the disability advocate community, it is encouraged to use first-person language. All too often, the term SPED is used to identify or define a student in more than a data report category. In Phoenix Elementary School District Number 1, we will set the expectation that students receiving special education services are in fact general education students which happen to have exceptional needs. Special education is a service, not a child. The main reason to change the language is to put students first before the unique needs they may have. The language communicates more inclusivity and reduces the desire to call a child or a group of children SPED, and instead focuses on their right to be a student first. In an effort to follow person-first language like student with exceptional needs or student with exceptionalities, we are changing the name of the department and some of our vocabulary. The services a student with exceptional needs is provided are still called special education services because that is the term for the services mandated by IDEA. The department name will change to Exceptional Student Services to align with the name our state uses to describe special education and other exceptional programs under the Americans with Disabilities Act. When we refer to students receiving special education services, we will refer to the term students with exceptional needs, and teachers providing these services are now called exceptional student services teachers instead of SPED teachers.
So those are some fantastic celebrations. Board members, thanks for helping me out tonight. Dr. Cadales, you too. As I look down the list, our celebrations are all student focused, safety focused, and staff celebratory focused. So the only thing I would add to all of this is a continued thank you to our families and our parents who continue to collaborate with us as we continue to move throughout the beginning of this school year. Thank you so much for all that you do for our schools.
So with that, we'll move on to some more superintendent reports, or are we moving on past that?
We probably ought to talk about the COVID case rates and positivity rates. And Nick, I think you've got some slides for me. Rocky, you've got some slides for me. Somebody's got some slides for me. So this one we're looking at. So all of these things we've seen before. Governing board, members of our audience, you'll remember that we never stopped providing data. Even when we thought that the numbers were getting better and we were into the yellows and into the greens, we never stopped tracking. And that longitudinal data has really become very helpful. So this particular slide is I believe it's the community transmission level. And you can see this one reads, if I can see this at the bottom, this one reads August 26th, 2021 for the date period of the 15th through the 21st. You can see that the case rate now for cases per 100,000 did drop, but it dropped from 386.96 to 333.17. So not by a lot. And at the same time, the percent positivity rate dropped from 13% down to 9.7%. We are still in high transmission based on these numbers. And I want to get into the minutes that Phoenix Elementary continues to closely monitor these rates, and that we're being extremely transparent about the case rates, positivity rates in our community. As we move on to the next slide. We'll see this one is the high level zip codes that we track, 85003 through 85034. And you can see that all of the cases per 100,000 is in this high transmission category, and that we have 3 in the yellow and another 4 in the red for percent positivity. COVID-like illness, if you may recall, is no longer tracked by the state or the county. And so we don't have that data. In fact, we should probably go ahead and eliminate that column. But we still have it. And again, we're keeping very close watch. In our next spreadsheet, and the next 2 were longer lists of what we've just seen. So this is the full list of zip codes that we're tracking for the date of August 26th. You can see that the top zip codes are starred on the left side. And then as we roll through, this represents all of the students from all of the different areas in and around the county that attend our schools. So many, many open enrolled students. And you can see their neighborhoods are in high transmission as well when it comes to the case rates. And then finally, we have the backup support for the percent positivity. Now you see the black there, that according to Mark, some of these zip codes that are blacked out, the county's not reporting on those zip codes. And I don't know why, but those zip codes are no longer available to us. And so they've been blacked out on our spreadsheet. We could probably delete the rows, but in full transparency, we want to show that we used to track those zip codes, but now that data is no longer available. So again, the majority of our percent positivity for all the zip codes of the students who attend our district are in high transmission. I bring this information forward for the purpose of maintaining our high level of transparency. I don't have a, what are we going to do about this high rate of positivity and case rates. I don't have that answer at this time, but we're going to continue to track it anyway. And as things move along and as some of our state and county leaders work with us to help make decisions, then we'll continue to move forward in that way. The other thing I have, to kind of get a little granular, is you may have seen a board report on this. I want to report that since the first day of school, nearly 350 students and nearly 20 staff members have been directed to quarantine following close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. And all schools, with the exception of Bethune, Capital, and Faith North, have had at least one student or staff member test positive for the virus. Not all of these cases have resulted in the need to quarantine others who had close contact with individuals who had tested positive. However, there have been several cases that have resulted in entire classrooms or cohorts of students who were in close contact with positive case needing for a quarantine for 14 days. This evening, the governing board is going to review our health and safety plan with the help of Mr. Quintana and Lynette, and we intend to align ourselves with the county health department and CDC by recommending to reduce the 14 days down to 10 days. I want to celebrate Lynette and Vic, our teachers and principals and staff in and around the district, our safety managers, you, Mr. Quintana, and others who have been very vigilant in following our protocols for contact tracing. We are one of the better districts in the state that I have seen that has a solid system and that follows it through and does our contact tracing and decision making very well. So kudos to everyone out there who's spending a lot of time on making sure that we keep our students and our staff and our community as safe as we can. So thank you very much. Next, Madam Chair, members of the governing board, I'd like to turn your attention to Mr. Quintana and his enrollment report. As you are aware, we have recently passed the first 10 days of school, and it's pretty common for us to talk about the enrollment and how we're doing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Weeks. Nice to see everyone. Ready whenever you are, Mr. Quintana.
Better? Did it again twice in a row. Wanted to give information on an interim basis regarding enrollment for the first couple of weeks of the school starting, and also compared to last year where we were. And also I want to bring in Mr. Nick McGann here. He's, as you know, the director of MIS. And I also want to bring him out here because he's a person that's in charge of our data warehouse information and does a great job of putting this information together for us. And also to answer questions that maybe that I'm not able to answer for us. So thanks for joining me. So the first slide here is a comparison between the end of last year enrollment compared to the start of the new year in the first couple of 2-3 weeks. If you look at the left column here chart, it shows that we had a enrollment of 4,418. And so then this number represents the enrollment total at the end of the last school year, at the very end. And so with that information, we're basically looking at, there's a certain group that were promoted, the 8th graders were promoted to high school. And that was 648 of those students. And we also had folks that returned to us this year that we call retained here, 4,073. But also we had the 697 of them, students that did not return and were retained. And so that's a comparison from at the end of last year. And if we look at this year, we currently have a total enrollment of 5,249. And with that, as I mentioned, we had 4,073 that returned and, we were retained. We also have 650 new students that are not kindergartners. So we have 526 new kindergartners that came into our school district, so the total here makes up the 5,249. A couple of things to point out is that on a net basis, we basically had a reduction of 169 students, from the end of last year to the first, couple of weeks here of school starting. And also want to point out that if you look at the retention rate that we have based on the 4,073, and also taking out the students that were promoted to high school, we basically have a retention rate of 85% of those students that return back to our school. And also this information does not include pre-K, because at this point, in the first week or two, we don't have the full cohort of students coming back to pre-K until more recently. So this information is really just more from K to K8. And so the next chart, it shows the enrollment by school. And so if you look at the numbers here overall, a couple of things to point out is that if we average out the number of students per school, but we also exclude Faith North, for example, and also the I Academy, we have an average of 371 kids and students per school. The I Academy has enrolled 228 students, which I think has been helpful because the 169 of students that we basically, that did not return, or we have a reduction in that, that probably would have been higher if we didn't have the I Academy in place and going. So I think that attributed to us having a lower number than we expected of kids not returning. And also we start, as you know, we started the new kindergarten program at Faith North. And so that's what the 14 students represent to in that particular column. The one thing that we do want to point out is that we, as a district, we like to have an average of at least 400 students per school, and so that's something that we want to strive for at a minimum. And so those are things that we want to work on as far as enrollment efforts and all, keeping in mind the demographics and the pathway to success, so forth. But that is one of the goals that we like to have, is that we have all the schools at a 400 average. And also, if you break it down by grade, these are the number of students by grade, and it gives you a breakdown of the new students as well as the returning students. And if you look at an average here, they're pretty even across the board. But if you look at an average, we have 583 students per grade, and with basically, if you look at that, the 8th grade class is the biggest class we have, and looks like 541 first graders is the lowest. And we also look at the number of new students coming into different grades. And if we exclude the information from the kindergarten, because they're basically all new, most of them are new students, the average number of students per grade is 81. And so, we have a couple outliers where we have more students in first grade, for example, than the average of 114, 97 in the 4th grade and so forth. And the rest are pretty much around the same range. And so this kind of gives you a snapshot of where we're at right now with enrollment. And this is something that we keep tabs of, basically every single day through Synergy. And that's the system that Mr. McGann and the folks that we work with and also at the schools, because obviously the schools, are involved in helping us monitor the attendance, the enrollment and so forth, that gets reported through Synergy. And the folks here in Mr. McGann's shop with MIS, they do all the tracking and data mining for this, this information. And we're also, we're looking at the what happens, for example, after Labor Day. Sometimes there's an uptick after Labor Day. And so we'll see how that looks like in the next, next couple of weeks. So we'll keep you informed. We do expect to keep you informed of this information and attendance on a regular basis, especially the first few months of school. With that, are there any questions that that we can answer?
I just have two. I know that because we've looked at a lot of data previously, and we expected an enrollment drop just because of the number of children in the area. Do you know whether, I'm just trying to figure out what the difference between what we expected pre-COVID, our enrollment to drop, compared to what this enrollment drop is. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. I'm not-
No, it does. Yeah, we got some demographic information from Applied Economics. They indicate that that we would get a little bit of an uptick with kindergartens for a couple of years, but then after that they would start decreasing. We did expect, even though the information regarding COVID was not on demographic study, we did expect a higher reduction and decrease than we have. So that's we think that's very good news.
So we actually expected to lose more students than we did.
Yes.
Okay, so that's amazing. That's great to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Start with that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
No, I think the 169 we thought it might be more upwards of 200 and maybe 300, and so that's definitely good news.
Okay, that's great news. Okay, my second question, I guess, maybe the first one answered it, was just whether this drop is comparable to what other districts are seeing.
Ooh, that I'd have to look into that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if Nick, that's something that is available through. We can probably get, and something we'll also cover at a later meeting is the ADN numbers, the actual attendance information. That's probably information that's probably available to all of us. On the enrollment side, I don't know if that's information that's available.
Thank you.
Dr. Fink, the best way to get that information is when school districts begin to do their December revision, and we begin to compare our average daily membership among other districts, other than just making calls and saying, hey, did you get, how's your enrollment? I mean, that's the only other way to do that.
It might be an interesting conversation in one of your superintendent gatherings, just to.
Yeah, I think I want to thank these guys. I want to draw the board's attention to a couple of numbers on the very first slide. And that is when you take out where it says end of 2021, you have 4,073 students in the blue. You have 648 students who promoted, and you have 697 students who did not return over the summer. But then there were 500 on the next bar here. You have 526 kinder, and you have 650 what they call new other. That speaks to the mobility of our district, where we keep talking about roughly 900 students will leave the district. And if we net zero, 900 students would return. What we've seen over the last few years is more students are leaving us than enrolling in our district. And that's how Phoenix Elementary gets its declining enrollment number. So that's a lot of student movement. And as we continue to track this throughout the year, we'll be able to see just how much mobility is within our district, because it impacts academics, it impacts lots and lots of things. So I'm very glad that we're taking a kind of a new look at mobility, and we've been able to create a formula to be able to do that. And Nick, I want to thank you for that. Nice job.
I do have a clarification for the Phoenix Eye Academy. I want to just make sure that the 168 were students that we had in our physical location and that are now online. And the 60 is just new students? Because I feel like the school's new, so they should all be new, right? But what are you telling me about returning?
Great question. So if we're talking receive in the school district, so not just So keep in mind, you can look at a different school like Capital, right? So it's got 317 retained. That doesn't mean 317 kids at Capital are back at Capital. They could have been in medicine, they went to Capital. So the same thing with High Academy, 168, whereas other schools last year, we kept them in there. But as you were saying, all students are new to High Academy first year. So it's just saying that 168 whereas previous
Okay, and then a follow-up is that 60, how many are kindergartners? For the I Academy?
Another great question. That's not shown on here, but we can absolutely find it out.
Thank you.
The other thing that might be interesting to look at is with having so many new first graders, my question then is, they could be new first graders because their parents held them because of COVID. However, they could also be children, because this is what parents do. They put their kids in kindergarten, it doesn't go well, they don't like the school, and then they move. So that's just an interesting thing to look at and to ensure that our kinder programs are top notch so we can keep our kids.
Last quick comment. A part of me did, I guess, get excited when you said that pre-K wasn't included. So there's a handful of kids that we might actually have as kindergartners in the future, but it would be kind of nice to know that data. I know it's not something that financially fits into the K-8 spot, but it would be good to know just when that does come in.
So, yeah, definitely. We will include that information in later data. And again, part of the reason we didn't include it because the first couple of weeks, they're not in school yet. But now that they are in school, we'll include the information in the future reports.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I do. I mean, following your logic, I know we have more than 14 students at Faith North. It has capacity of about 150. So, and
Yeah,
then we can,
that's just a kindergarten, right? So that's why.
so that's kinder. Oh, so that's the transition of kinder at Faith
Yes.
North. So when we do the preschool, we'll show Kenilworth, Garfield, and Faith North.
Correct.
And I think we have maybe a couple of them too. I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
okay.
I think right now we're roughly just over 200 all preschool. So, but again, we'll have that our data for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. Will we move right into community communications now? How many do we have this evening?
Hi, Mr. Ria, we have a person that would like to speak. His name is Chico Robinson, and the topic is mental health. Mr. Robinson, you have 15 minutes. I'm sorry.
Normally
Oh,
it's
so-
3. We'll start with
15 is what I heard.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No worries.
I'll
but
try to
it's-
keep it as brief as possible. So today I've been up here and spoken on a lot of different topics, and what I'm here talking about today is something that I'm not very familiar with, which is on the topic of my own mental health, and what I've just identified as being depressed. Every day I come home with the absolute fear of bringing a virus home to my born son. And he's my first, and I should be enjoying this. I should be loving this. But every time I hold him, I get a sudden fear that I might pass something on to him. I walk in and I teach, and my homeroom is gone. I've been sent home because of COVID protocol. That's traumatic. I just want to teach my kids constantly. And I know we're working on things, but up until, this testing, I've been spending $28 a week on at-home tests. And we're doing this, and in terms of nationally, we're still 49th in the nation in teacher pay. So we're doing this, and I know PECTA and you guys and our board and human resource do a great job of compensating us as best as we can. But as professionals, we're still falling very, very short. And that leads to more depression. We have a governor who's sending our kids into the line of fire with this virus. And as we can see, more and more kids are ending up in hospitals. I thank you guys for keeping them safe. We have a legislature that targets me and my president, Mr. Barbuto back there, as enemies, and we constantly get trolled online and on Twitter. And we try not to read it, but it happens all the time. Why? Because we speak up for our kids and for our profession. And so, we have a Supreme Court that just made its decision to protect billionaires over our students. And so the initiative that we've worked 3 summers in a row for Invest in Ed and Prop 208 and whatever other names we've called them, it's probably going to get thrown out as well. And I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I'm not up here saying I'm going to quit. I'm up here saying that every single day is like a month. That I am a happy dude. You guys all know me. And I'm beaten down. And so what I'm asking up here is there's going to be a lot of difficult decisions to be made. And I just ask, obviously, students always come first. But teachers, educators, our support staff that has to do constant tracing to find out how many kids have been exposed. We're all working extra hard. And so please keep them in your minds and in your hearts. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a reminder, the board isn't able to provide comments on community communications.
Yeah, we have an additional 13
Okay,
communications from the public.
thank you very much. Ms.
And here we go. The first one, to whom it may concern. I am a parent of a child who attends Shaw Montessori. He has been in the district since pre-K. Last year was a year like no other. Stressful, scary, disappointment aplenty. It was tough on adults, and I think harder on kids who had to cope with thoughts and fears of losing parents due to COVID. I know this because that was my son. That's still my son. Except the worry has shifted from mom and dad dying to him dying because he's too young to be vaccinated. Starting in person this year had us all on edge until you announced a mask requirement for schools in the district. I personally am proud of the stand the school board has taken to require masks. The science has shown that our littles who cannot get the vaccine yet are much safer if everyone is masked. I would not feel safe if some of the kids or staff were and some weren't masked. It's that simple. I ask for a no opt-out policy. Continue placing kids first. Continue being brave. Continue masking up. Thanks, Alyssa Mansadek. Number 2, as a parent of 2 children at Shaw, a product of Phoenix L. Kenilworth, and former governing board president at Phoenix Union, I can definitely say there's only right answer on masking, and that is mandating them for all students and staff. If parents wish their children to go maskless, they can move to remote learning. School sites must remain safe for all those on campus. This is non-negotiable. I do applaud the governing board's decision to mandate masks and will gladly help defend a smart policy rooted in science and public health. Sincerely, Ian Danley. Number 3, the governing board does not make the laws. ARS 15-341, General Powers and Duties, Immunity Delegation A. The governing board shall prescribe and enforce policies and procedures for the governance of schools that are not inconsistent with law or rules prescribed by the State Board of Education. Not only is Shaw Elementary and my other public school breaking the law, but they are violating my daughter's rights. Furthermore, last time I checked, the teachers and staff of the school We're not licensed to practice medicine. Therefore, they're not able to attempt to treat my child or any child on campus by requiring a mask. Furthermore, it is no one's job but my hired medical advisor to dictate what medical interventions my daughter's child should follow. See ARS 32-1401-22. We also seek religious exemption to the mask requirements from the school district. There were no options given to us. We shouldn't need an opt-out form, it should just be optional. Why don't you have an opt-in form for those who request their kids to be muzzled? I hope that by the time her start date in September is here, you will have changed your decision on this matter. But I will state that this is unenforceable and that my daughter Kennedy Baller shall not be wearing a mask to school. She will not be part of any school pooling, testing, and shall not be given any vaccines while at school. Again, the school is not allowed to enforce her to wear a mask based not only our religious beliefs, but also for medical matters. I am not giving permission for her to wear a mask, be vaccinated, or be pool tested for any medical condition. No teacher may give or prompt her to wear a mask. She is not allowed to have a mask on, even if she is coached or peer pressured to ask for one. I'm very saddened by all of this and hope you decide to follow the law and do what is best for our children, as this is not a one-size-fits-all matter. Masks do not work. It's proven that particles of COVID are smaller than mask openings. Kids do not properly wear masks or clean them or dispose of them. They end up on the floor while eating and they are breaking in bacteria. Kids need to see faces and lip to learn. I could barely understand the teacher at our meeting, let alone a small child. Maybe instead of forcing masks on our children, the school can put effort towards making healthy life choices, eating well, and exercise to prevent illness. See links below showing masks are harmful. This needs to be a choice. It is a medical decision that isn't the choice of the school board. She then lists several websites. Thank you, Candace Bowler. Number 4. Hello, I am all for mask optional. My daughter wears glasses and can't see out of them with her mask on. She is struggling in class to wear her mask, finds it hard to breathe and see without it. Please let it be up to each child and their parent to wear a mask or not. Thanks, Caitlin Clement, concerned parent at Shaw Montessori. Number 5, members of the governing board. Our daughter and family are proud members of the Shaw Montessori community. Upon the start of the school year, we were so relieved to hear that our district was willing to do what is best for the health and safety of all their students and staff and mandate the only line of defense our children under 12 have currently against this potentially deadly virus. It is essential that we as an entire community continue our efforts to combat this virus and keep up masking for everyone. I firmly stand against an opt-out option for families as it will give another excuse for parents who choose to ignore the majority of medical communities who overwhelmingly support masking in schools for children under 12. We can only accomplish our mutual goals of keeping in-person learning going, the prioritization of the health and safety of our students and staff, and keep community spread down if we continue to work together in the masking effort. One is never more important than the community as a whole. Please again, do not allow for an opt-out option for families within our community. Thank you so much, Diana Garcia, parent at Shaw Montessori. Number 6, Dr. Weeks and members of the board. As a pediatric nurse practitioner, an employee in the intensive care unit at Phoenix Children's Hospital, and a mother of 3 children at Shaw, I applaud the district for its mask mandate. I am proud that Phoenix 1 followed the guidelines of the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics in mandating masks for our children. I urge you to maintain this requirement in schools for the protection of students and faculty. Schools play an essential role in the growth, development, and well-being of children. This role should be protected, and mandating masks does just that. Thank you for your stance at the start of the school year, and I urge you to hold to it. Stacy Stravitz, parents of Augustus Shaw. Number 7, members of the governing board. I am a parent of 2 children at Shaw Montessori. Both my 3rd grader and kindergartner are absolutely thrilled to be back in school, learning and interacting with their teachers and friends. I was incredibly grateful when the district announced the mask policy in early August, as children of this age are too young to receive the vaccine if their parents choose. And we have seen dramatic increases in COVID across the state and in our district. My children will wear a mask regardless of the policy, however. We are seeing outbreaks of COVID-19 in schools across the valley where masks are not required. When kids are exposed or sick, it disrupts learning, makes life difficult for their teachers who need to catch them up, and parents who have to miss work. We endured the challenge of online schooling during an 18-month period at great educational, social, and emotional costs to the children and teachers. Parents also experienced financial loss and increased stress. Please do not enact the mask option and help us keep our children in school. Kind regards, Allison Williams. Number 8, dear school board members, my child attends Shaw Montessori. When I heard that Phoenix Elementary District was requiring masks despite the governor's threats, I was happy and relieved. Science shows that masking reduces the spread of COVID-19, and until a vaccine is approved for children under 12, that's the best I can do for my child. It's the best way to stop the spread of COVID-19 among all our children. Please do not allow an opt-out of masking. This will set up a dangerous precedent and make it more difficult to keep all kids protected. Best regards, Andrea Golfin. Number 9, to whom it may concern. I have 2 children at Shaw Montessori, and I cannot tell you what a relief it was to hear that the school district decided to require masks on campus. My youngest child, who is in pre-K, missed out on her first year of pre-K due to COVID and was looking forward to going to school. She also has asthma and other health issues, and the mandate made me feel safe in allowing her back on campus. Since the start of school, the number of students and staff at the school being sick or testing positive for COVID-19 has been very, very low, and I attribute it to the mask mandate. We at Shaw take our school community very seriously, and we are happy to do our part to protect everyone because we value each other. I am writing to you to please vote no on the opt-out option for masks and continue to require masks on campus for all times for the safety of our children, teachers, and hardworking staff who have done a phenomenal job in keeping us all safe so far this year. Thank you for your consideration. Kathleen Merzra, parent. Number 10, to the Phoenix Elementary District School Board. My name is D'Amica Franks, and I am the 4th, 5th grade teacher at iAcademy. I have worked for the district for several years and never really voiced my opinion to the board about anything. Today, we are in a new era, and as a district, we are evolving to remain relevant to the times. The iAcademy is a great example of how the district is embracing change, which is great. However, there are some major concerns and grievances I have with the district and the support that is not being taken seriously. Joseph Fuentes is doing an awesome job with handling the challenges we face, whether it's communicating with parents, technology, frustrated teachers, etc. Our numbers have doubled since we have been open. The 4th and 5th grade classes have tripled in capacity, and to my understanding, and according to the PECTA and state guidelines, the elementary class sizes were not to exceed 30. At the current student count, another teacher should be hired to meet the needs of the students. Well, this has not occurred. I have a total of 52 students, planning and teaching all content areas for 2 grade levels. I am beyond stressed and stretched thin. I have a life outside of teaching that is being affected by teaching. I am already not paid enough, and please do not state we are the highest paying in the Phoenix, because that is not true. If you strip away the McKeesa stipends and Prop 301 money, the base salary is offensive. By not hiring another certified staff member or an assistant that should make at least be paid $15 an hour with the workload I have, it is doing a disservice to the students that are enrolled in this program. Where are our pods? Where are our desktop phones? I mean, seriously, the district had planned to open iAcademy in April or May. How are you all supporting Mr. Fuentes when he doesn't have all the tools that were believed to be in place before the school opened? Not to mention, benchmark for iAcademy is not working, and to my understanding, we are the only school that does not have this major program to teach a major component. I have never felt so overwhelmed and unappreciated, just as if we were in quarantine by the district. D'Amica Franks. Number 11. Good evening, Governor Board, Dr. Weeks, and PSD community. My name is Caitlin Kelly, and I am the instructional coach at iAcademy. Change is never easy, especially when it comes to a career you love. Now that we are in the 4th week of school, I can honestly say how happy I am that I made a change and joined the iAcademy. This has been a learning experience for me, switching from the classroom to instructional coach. I'm inspired by the dedication and determination of my principal and staff, as we go through the hurdles of starting not only a new school, but a new online school. The days leading up to the first day of school, we had 60 students enrolled in the iAcademy. Today, we currently have 226 amazing students enrolled and learning in our classes. Additionally, there are approximately 30 students going through the enrollment process. Although we are eager to meet the needs of each student and support their journey to success, our teachers need the resources and staff to do so. The kindergarten and first grade teacher is a combo class with about 40 students. The fourth and fifth grade teacher is also teaching a combo class with about 52 students. I appreciate that our district has always put equity at the forefront of their mind when making decisions. There are classrooms as small as 10 to 13 students, but our teachers are being told to go above the PECTA recommended capacity. How is this equitable or best for students? We are an online school, but that does not mean that our teachers are not providing all the same extraordinary services that in-person teachers are providing. Furthermore, every school was given the opportunity to hire reading interventionists and EL interventionists. We are required to provide intervention and support for our students as well, but with less staff and increasing enrollment. Our middle school team is currently teaching 3 grade levels, and our primary team is teaching 2 grade levels. In addition, we have 1 office member who's responsible for enrollment, onboarding, attendance, and technology support. She can't effectively support families when we have overloaded her plate. We are a small but proud community at the iAcademy. I ask that you take us into consideration when making decisions that not only affect the staff, but the students we are happily welcoming into our PSD family. Thank you, Caitlin. Number 12. Hello, my name is Crystal Carrillo, and I'm a community member in Central West Phoenix. I want to express my gratitude to the Phoenix Elementary School District Board for implementing mask mandates. We know the science and must follow what the CDC guidance says. Now with COVID variants, Delta, Lambda, and others spreading quickly in our country, we cannot falter with these precautions. Children cannot receive the vaccine and are at a higher risk for exposure and potential hospitalization with the new variants. We cannot wait until a child's life is taken by this virus to take action. I support mask mandates and other measures to keep children in vulnerable communities safe. Thank you for your leadership on this issue, and I support the board to make decisions for my community. In unity, Crystal Carrillo, concerned community member. Number 13. Yes. Yes. 13, President Trujillo, members of the board, Dr. Weeks, and cabinet. My name is Jay Burrito. I'm a 7th and 8th grade English teacher at Edison, and I currently serve as president of PECTA. When we all decide to get involved with education, we take an oath that says we protect the children. Sure, test scores, standards mastery, and learning strategies are important, but above all else, we want to ensure that our students have a safe learning environment. That goes for our wonderful custodial staff, transportation, classroom teachers, mental health professionals, principals, and the folks that call Emerson Court home. You might hear how the safety measures we take as a district fall into some gray area of legality. But what's more important than that is that we've decided to prioritize the health and safety of the students and staff of Phoenix One. Someday, years from now, we'll look back and remember the struggle. But through that struggle, we'll all recall that Phoenix One looked out for each other. We led by example, and there's nothing that makes me more proud to be an employee here. Thank you and be safe. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Merriman. Thank you to the community who took the time out to speak to the board this evening. We do take that into consideration for future agenda items, and we do appreciate the input. Moving on, we will move on to item D, approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Alicia Vinco, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to a roll call vote, please, Ms. Marion.
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Alicia Vink,
Yes.
Thank you. Hearing that, the motion passes and we will move on. To item E, our curriculum and construction.
Madam President, I have no items this evening. Thank you.
So moving on to Mr. Quintana then. My apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We don't have a presentation for this particular item, but we did want to make a request and recommendation for approval of a change in a mitigation plan that, that also the board approved some changes, back a month or two ago. And in our mind, it's a simple change, but it's an effort to be in line with the health and safety protocols of the county. And so back in May, the Maricopa County Health Department, they basically set guidelines that to have students or staff go in quarantine for no longer than 10 days. And we didn't make that change in our current policy. So we want to recommend at this point to shorten the timeframe that we have right now from 14 to 10 days for individuals and students and staff that are in quarantine. And so that is a request that we wanted the board to consider and approve.
Any discussion, anyone? Questions?
I do appreciate this, and I am glad that we are following Department of Health guidelines. And I think our teachers and our families will appreciate it as well. Remind me, there is a provision in there too for students and staff to be tested after 5 days and then go back, or no?
We asked them to get tested.
Yeah.
But then we can't require it, but we do ask them to be, and if they are tested within after 3 days and they want to, they can come back.
There's Miss Lynette.
Hi.
Hi.
So the testing at 5 days is to shorten the return at 7 days.
Okay.
This returning at 10 days is if you are at contact, but you don't have the disease. We're holding them out 14 days. So this would allow them to come back to 10.
Okay, and
So they
so,
don't have any symptoms, so they don't need to test.
okay, but can they test and come back in 7 days too, or no? If you're a contact, you're out for 10 days.
It's two separate things.
Okay,
So say you're in class, someone is symptomatic, they test, and they're out 10 days because they have it.
yes,
You're a contact, so you're sent home for 14, but you never get any symptoms, you're not sick, but you're a contact, so all those kids are home for 14 days. This shortens it to 10.
or 7 if they get tested.
No, that's a separate thing.
That's the kids, okay,
No, you're right. That shortens it,
okay,
because I've been doing this with my nurses, but I'm telling you. Because when they have a contact, because the kids are in their office,
right,
but they have no symptoms, they test at 5 days, because almost always, if you get sick, it's by day 5.
yes,
If you have no symptoms, test at 5 days, you get the results by day 7, it's negative, you come back.
okay, perfect, good. Since you're up here, I had a couple more questions. Our mitigation plan and where we're at right now. Because when we talked last, we were in a bit of a different place. So, and maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. Do we think the data that we're seeing right now in our schools specifically is consistent with the infection rates that we would expect for a school that is following these mitigation plans, given the rate of transmission in our community. Does that make sense?
Some of the schools are higher than other schools. And a lot of the kids that are positive are bringing it from their families. And so you have to look at overcrowding. Multiple families living in the same home. And so you're going to see more in parts of the city where you see more poverty.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, you have to look at the demographics. But yes, the rates are about the same as they are what the health department is showing.
Okay.
You also have to look at age groups of kids that are getting it. You see the older ones because nothing's going to happen to me. Here, have a drink. Here, come sit by me. And you see the young ones because they just want to be friends.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm just
Does
trying
that
to,
make sense?
it does make sense. I'm just, I want to know how we're going to evaluate whether our mitigation strategies are working, because when we talked last, we were expecting this to be a lot less than what it is, because we're implementing all of these mitigation strategies. However, if healthy,
I meet with many lead nurses
Yeah.
every week on Zoom. Everybody's got so many cases. High schools, K through 8, preschool. I can't say who's got it worse. It's just bad right now.
right, yeah, so I think if, maybe that's an update or something for the board, maybe from Healthy Verify, maybe they could chime in. Dr. Weeks at some point, just, how do we evaluate whether our mitigation strategies are really working or not working? And then has Concentric done their testing yet?
No, we met yesterday on Zoom with all the nurses. The nurses had a little trouble getting everything ordered because it's so busy in their offices. And part of the other thing is we're sending, you got a runny nose, out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, we're over sending kids home.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have to do to get it out of the school. And so I talked to the person today from Spartan Staffing. That's where we're going, because I asked for help. And he said he doesn't think he can get enough people by Monday. So we backed it up to the 7th, and I told him no more. And Dr. Weeks said no more. We're going to start the 7th. But that's a Tuesday because it's a 3-day weekend. Monday's a holiday. And then in Arizona, we can get the results of the pool testing by midnight. So they will be there in the schools the next day to do the tests with the individuals if any pool has a positive in it.
That's great news. Thank you for working so hard on
And
that.
then that test is the test you can read in 15 minutes. I
Okay,
think this is really going to help us get ahead because especially the younger kids are asymptomatic more. So we'll catch them sooner with the virus. And we'll be able to get them out of the classroom.
awesome. Thank you for making that happen and for that update.
So Dr. Vink, members of the governing board, I want to acknowledge you, Lynette, for the 2 and 3 and 4 jobs that you're doing right now in and
Right
around the
now, I'm
district.
subbing every day.
Lynette's subbing every day. She's also the lead nurse. She's also working with the county to do all of our reporting. As you can imagine, the pool testing and the, the waivers from the families or the permission slips from the families is paper heavy. And so there's a lot going on. One of the things that we talked about today was that we need to get more families signed up for the pool testing. Just because we provide it doesn't mean that all families are ready to glom on, sign the permission slip and get going, right? So we'll be working with Linda and Lynette and our principals, teachers to just explain more clearly how this will benefit our families. It's free. Anybody's watching, it's free.
And this is different than previous tests that were in the nose. The Q-tip only goes to where your nose flares. It's not going up to the brain. So it's not gonna hurt. And we're not gonna injure the children. If the children are old enough to do it to themselves, we're gonna let them. So, but getting the consents back is hard. One school only has 15. That's not gonna be effective.
Lynette, have the consents gone out to all schools? So that's something that I might check or
I'll
encourage
t-
someone to
I'll
check
tell
into.
you, you need a bachelor's degree to understand it. And
I-
so Ms. Jeffries wrote a letter, we attached it to kind of make it more understandable. And Dr. Weeks' name is on it because a lot of people trust him. And so, but they're coming in so slow. And that's another reason we had to back it up a week.
So
We need to get going.
I did receive the letter as a parent, and I do think I agree with Dr. Weeks. We do need some more explanation, maybe even a quick video with someone doing the test that can be put on our social media, or that our teachers can, however they do that. However, my concern is that families I've talked to at several different schools have not received the form at all. So I do not think that the
Okay.
form, and actually, I think I was told that one school, the parents called the school and asked, and the forms have not been sent out yet because testing was on hold. So I would just encourage someone to check to make sure. The other thing I did hear that I was excited about, but didn't get in my particular school, is that there is an online version of the consent form that families can use as well. So if we can get that out, that would be amazing, because I definitely am concerned that we will not have enough families consent. So whatever we can do to get the word out would be awesome.
Yeah, Dr. Vink, members of the board, I would like to just remind us all that we, like Chico Robinson and some of the other teachers had said, everybody's burning the candle at both ends. And that some of our, well, I'm only aware of one school that hasn't sent out the form yet, but
I'm only aware of one.
yeah,
They were
one,
making copies today.
they were making copies. They asked for help to make copies. So we provided some support to make copies. I mean, that's kind of how what we're getting to,
Yeah.
right? But also, I just want to call your attention to the numbers that I read off with the number of cases and things like that. To me, that is a celebration in that we are being overprotective. As Lynette, you mentioned, we are taking this very seriously. We are being overprotective, and because of that, our numbers are inflated. In terms of the number of students who've been sent home under quarantine, staff and whatnot. We're going to continue to take it seriously. Our numbers are going to continue to be high.
And the other thing we do for the students that we send home, the nurses are calling them every 48 hours to check. See how they're doing, see about the symptoms. And when I report all the positive ones. I'm talking to the health department every day. And you know, so we've got our finger right there.
I know, and I appreciate you and all of your nurses. I know
But when he reports on the zip codes, realize what we have in some of our zip codes. 85004 is ASU.
oh,
We
absolutely.
can't fight that.
Speaking of the zip codes, do we intend to, I've seen some districts post a data dashboard of some sort so that families can see active cases happening in their schools. Do we intend to share something like the board update that we received with our families?
You know, we continue to talk about that, and I did talk about this with other superintendents in our area. There is some concern of the value it provides and the level of effort to put it together for the return on the information. Some of our neighboring districts are concerned that this would cause more confusion than clarity. So before we commit to even something as simple as Phoenix Union's 3-column report, I want to make sure that we have lots of background, that we have explained this clearly, and that this report, let's say posted to our website, doesn't get in the way of the message of the targeted messaging that we have for the people who are actually being impacted by this.
We really aren't sending, we really don't have a high number of positive cases. But we're sending a lot of kids home to be careful.
Right, and I'm just wondering if it would be good for the community to, because when you look at the news right now, or when you look at that zip or school district data, it does look a lot scarier than the number of positive cases that we actually have. So I'm seeing it more as a helpful tool to say, like, look, the reality is there's, you know, only 2 active cases or no cases at Capitol right now, which is really shocking. So just wondering if that, but I do understand that it would take time and resources, but maybe we switch to that versus the very detailed one that we.
We'll continue to take a look at it, Dr. Vane. I know that some of the other districts, Phoenix Union in particular, has had this thing posted for quite some time.
Okay. I think, oh, the last thing was just on our PPE. Are you seeing that teachers or students need something better? Like, do we need N95s for our teachers? Do we need, like, are you being able to get those things?
We're fine.
Okay.
The nurses have N95s available and they're not wearing them.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Sarah Sims for that. She is a hard driver of making sure that we have more than enough PPE. We'll have PPE lasting for years because she continues to push to get more and more and more. So if you're listening, Sarah, thank you too.
Great, thank you, Ms. Sarah. Thank you as well for all the added information. I do appreciate the overprotection that we are going full force with, and I also echo Dr. Vink's idea about trying to over communicate this, I guess, this past that we're in, as far as figuring out how to keep our kids safe and what that process looks like, and also what we look like compared to the rest of the district. So however that does happen, I do want to echo the thoughts on that, that if we are being overprotective in one way, let's also overdo it in some other ways. And I do understand, and I'm very grateful for everybody's efforts putting in figuring out this pandemic that changes every 5 seconds, it seems. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate it.
Do you have any questions about the 10 days and the 7 days? I kind of.
I did appreciate Dr. Vink's question as far as the provision in there. So does that look like it'll change based on, I guess, the the kids that just have contact, will they also have that option, I guess, to test out at some point and shorten that span?
It'll shorten it to 10 days. The 10 days is if they have the disease. The 7 days is if they're a contact. And the county's been doing this for quite a while. The 7 days contact, test at 5 days. If it's negative, they can come back in 7. That gives enough time for the test to come back.
Okay, I understood it the other way, so I'm glad you clarified.
You say it.
No, like you said.
Well, real quick, my next
I
question
said it
would
right.
be,
I said it right. Hey, I'm sleepwalking. I'm so stressed
I
out.
completely understand. That's just it. I want to make sure I heard correctly, so that way we can all best support, what we're doing right now. So I appreciate it. My next question would be, do we have to make any changes to this plan again, now that we have the full testing option?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm sure we'll be making some more changes. We'll be bringing them back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be making them. And then, of course, I always keep the offer open if you prefer to delegate that. And it makes things a little quicker for us at some point down the road. If you wanted to just ship that over to us, and we'll take care of it from there and then report back to the board. We can certainly talk about that at your convenience. And then the kind of just putting the 14 days and kind of the granular, the more surgical approach to how long you're out and how long you're back is really a balance of the social emotional needs of the students, being able to support the families. Every teacher that I talk to, every principal that I talk to, staff member wants students on campus in person, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to get those students here, which is why we're so appreciative of the board's commitment to stand with us to support mandating masks, because the science tells us that this is an effective means to keeping our kids on campus. And that's the objective, so they can learn, so they can be social in a safe way, and so that they're not left at home alone, or in some cases unsafe spaces. So we believe strongly that students are better served on campus, and that we're committed to doing whatever it takes to make sure that we stay on campus for as long as I can. And it's not me saying this. This is what I'm hearing from folks all around the district. And I think you needed to hear that, because I think you're in alignment with everything I just said, and I appreciate that too.
Absolutely. So to reiterate also that it would be helpful to have access, our families to have access to this online form. We could figure out how to get that on our website,
For
as
the
well
pool
as everything else
testing?
that'll go on. I think, yes, absolutely. My
We'll
apologies.
figure
Yes, for the
that
pool
out.
testing. Okay. That sounds good. As a
I
parent,
don't,
it would
but
be
neither.
much more accessible to me to be able to pull it up on my phone, either send it to my printer or be able to figure out, how to do that online, whatever that looks like. So I think that's a great idea. Any other questions before we move on?
Dr. Weeks, so I did hear Lynette say that she's been subbing every day. And I know that we have, you can't send people home and still have them physically on campus doing their job. So I'm just wondering about our sub and our staff situation. Last year, when we only had 50% of our kids on campuses, we required a lot less staff. So our principals, I guess, like, what's the plan? If going forward, we still haven't peaked yet.
Nurses have to quarantine too.
Right, so how are we handling?
I have 2 subs this year.
And it's not enough.
You can't find them. You
Right.
can't find them.
Yeah.
You can't find subs.
So what happens at a school if there's no nurse and no sub that day?
It hasn't happened.
We-
I'll figure out a way.
We'll have to job share, Dr. Vink.
I just don't want to school without a nurse because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want the secretary to decide.
Right.
Send this kid home or not.
Yeah, yeah. So do we need more support, I guess, and how do we get that?
So to Lynette's point, and if Vic were here, he would tell you, we've thrown all of our resources at providing additional staff. If you've seen our kind of employee, or part of our consent agenda, the number of folks that we've been hiring into the district, somewhere in around 80. And when you're a declining district like we are, that's counterintuitive. At the end of the day, we have interventionists, we've hired additional staff, and thanks to Dr. Gonzalez and her commitment and fight to retain and maintain that stable teaching complement, right? Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, for that. That there's no plans to reduce anywhere in and around the district, other than perhaps some leveling that might occur to support the I Academy, right? So at the end of the day, we don't have the same problem that other districts do in terms of being, we're short bus drivers, but we're not as short. We're short nurses, but we're not as short. And so the Phoenix Elementary family comes together to do whatever it takes to get the supports for students and families. But there's just not a lot of people out there who are putting in. And so we continue to recruit and promote the district. I think we have a good reputation on the street that we're a district that you would want to work for. And that's helped us. But still, it's a tough market. No matter where you work, it's a tough market right now. We're grateful for the folks that we have and the extra effort that everybody's putting in. But it's not because we don't have that high level of effort to throw the resources that the federal government gave to us to take care of this. We're all in for this.
Thank you. Whatever the board can do to
We'll find
support.
us some. We need to, nurses.
I mean, I thought about it, but they won't let me sub as a board member. So
Volunteer. I need a volunteer.
I'll be there, Lynette. I got you.
I'm at Magnet tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that, we kind of chuckle at that, but that's very true. We're in a position now where we need all hands. And if a board member has some additional time and would like to find out where there's a need, just give me a call and I'll tell you I'll find something for you to do, because there's lots to do around here. I'm kind of good at that piece.
That's a pretty interesting statement, because I have not seen a call for volunteers, and I know that some require training, but some do not. That may be something that we could do.
Well, and of course, our mitigation plan has us controlling who's actually on the campus too. So we have to be careful for that. Everything's a balance, Dr. Vink, members of the governing board. So anyway, thank you, Lynette. Thank you, Mr. Quintana. Appreciate you and everything that you all do. And Lynette, please pass it along to the nurses as well. Madam Chair, I think we're ready for the vote.
Do we have a motion to, I just was saying this in my head, and then I looked away. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the proposed changes to the Healthy Verified procedures?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, Ms. Marion?
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, the motion passes, and we will move on to number 2, hearing about the MOU with the Wesley Center.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This item is also a recommendation that the administration is making to get approval from the governing board for a memorandum of understanding with the Wesley Health Center. And this information we provided for at a board meeting, but also in the board update, where we're partnering with Wesley Health Centers, where they can provide a mobile clinic to our different schools on a scheduled basis. They are offering, and this is something that Lynette has also been working very hard with, along with Shane Sotelo at Herrera, to make this happen. So we're very excited about this opportunity. We are looking to start with 3 or 4 schools initially, but they have the capacity to expand to more throughout the school system, as time comes along. And they are able to provide, basic medical services, as well as provide vaccines and testing, as long as we schedule them, in advance. That's something they will also provide for us. So we wanted to, answer any questions that you might have about this, but ultimately, we'd like to recommend your approval of this memorandum of understanding.
I do have a question. Have we identified the schools?
You're going to start with 5 schools. I identified Herrera, because they're in Herrera's backyard. Because of their proximity to Bethune, Dunbar, and themselves. Edison, Barfield, and Hurd. They're going to start there. We're going to end that they're going to all the schools. We're probably going to do 1 day a month. I don't want the doctor sitting on the van twiddling her thumbs. I think she can see 20 a day. She can do anything on the van that they do in the clinic. She will also see family members of the students, which would be great, because if the student has pink eye, probably going to have to treat some other people in the family. Besides immunizations, she can COVID test, she can get COVID shots. We have to let them know ahead of time so they bring it. They want the nurse to be the person to find the patients. Find patients every day. So that's not going to be a problem. They got federal money, so they will see staff. They said they would even put privilege so we could see staff before work. So this is going to be a win-win. They want more patients. So we've arranged that they can park their vehicle in our bus yard if they want.
Thank you. And I just lost my train of thought. Okay.
We'll have to see how it goes. We haven't done this. But they're flexible, we're flexible.
Oh, I remember. Are we gonna have, do we already have a communications plan prepared to share this opportunity with our families?
No. Oh, we have the ambulance ready.
But we are working on it. They also, the staff at Wesley participated in, if not all, I think it's going to be almost all of our open houses that we have at the schools. So we had them out there and also promoting this program as well. So we are beginning the communication on this, and it will be ready when this is approved.
I would just like to add, speaking for myself, and I'm sure many of the board members are happy to volunteer. We do have 2 weekends, right, before we begin. If you want to put, especially me to work, passing out flyers, sending out those communications, for me, I've always found that door-to-door canvassing has worked. I'm willing to do that. So again, that's the way I can volunteer. I'm teaching the mornings, but in the evenings I'm free, and that's something I can do.
I completely agree. Mr. Carrillo, thank you. And I would love to join you in helping support this. Actually, I want to say it was one of our, no, I guess it was one of our open houses, Meet the Teachers Night, but that's where I got this mask from, was the Wesley Center staff.
They
So
were at those 5 schools.
they sure were, and it was really warm those days. So I
Yes, it
do
was.
appreciate seeing them out there.
That's how you start. That's how I started all my programs.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here to answer questions, but I'm ready to move forward if there's not any other questions about the MOU.
We expect to see them in 2 weeks. Is that what?
I don't know when
Oh,
we're
okay.
starting. We
Okay,
haven't had a meeting. We're just trying to do everything by
Labor Day?
right now. But once we get this passed, she will report.
okay. Mr. Creel, I think Labor Day was the pool testing. This
Yes.
doesn't have a start date yet.
We're gonna start that on the 7th, the day after Labor Day.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
We'll provide a board update, give you the details and the logistics, and then Mr. Trujillo, Mr. Carrillo, thank you so much for your volunteerism. We'll reach out to you and get you all set up.
Hearing no other questions, do we have a motion to approve the MOU as presented? Wait, I'm sorry, Dr. Weeks, are we voting on this individual item? Okay, just making sure.
Mhm.
And Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Alicia Vink, I'll second.
Thank you. Miss Miriam, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, the motion passes. And we will move on to our next item. I guess it was be our giblet resolution, is that correct?
Yeah, this is the item regarding the extending sick leave,
Okay, for staff.
item number 3 under my section.
Got it. Number 3. Thank you
Yeah,
very much, Mr. Quintana.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is again another request that we're making as a recommendation from the administration to extend the paid leave as outlined above for the time periods from July 1st to June 30th for this current fiscal year. And this is really an extension of something that we did last year. The board approved this last year, is that we're providing the staff extra time, leave time, sick time, paid leave, sick time, if they get the COVID virus, and they have to stay home for an extended period of time. So we're asking for that approval again, this extension. And obviously we got to answer any questions, but that's, it's pretty much as simple as that.
I do have a question about what if the teacher or staff have to take off time because their spouse or family member, they have to, have time off because their family is sick.
Yeah, this particular guideline applies only to the individual staff member that is, if they're sick themselves. It wouldn't apply if a family member or the spouse is sick. It would only apply to if the staff member gets the COVID virus.
Okay, but what if, so they couldn't use their paid sick leave for just leave in general if they have to take care of their
Yeah,
family?
they still maintain the regular sick time that we have.
Okay.
And then whether it's PTO or sick time that we have 5 days, per year. So they can still use that time if they want to take care of a family member. But this, so even though the staff member will get the 10 days, they still retain the 5 days. The regular 5 days of sick time. That still stays on the for them to use at a later date.
Thank you.
But if my spouse had COVID and I'm then required to quarantine, right? I can't go to school and teach. So this sick leave wouldn't apply unless I tested positive for COVID?
Correct. You will still get the sick leave because we still have the 5 days sick time. So you will still, the staff member will still get that.
Right, but I would only have 5 days of sick time and I'm required to quarantine for 10,
Correct.
right? Okay.
So this is a spinoff of what the federal government proposed last year. And so there's also a ratification component, because since July 1, if you have tested positive for COVID and you were sent home, we were pulling your PTO or sick days. If the board should pass this, we would retroactively give those employees who have used their PTO or sick time because they were personally sick from COVID, we would reinstate those days back to them. But to your point, Dr. Vink, the federal government doesn't allow for us to extend this benefit beyond its limitation. So to Mr. Quintana's point, if you have the 5 sick days and additional PTO on the books, or even your vacation days before you go into what we call doc status, you can use all of those other days that you have earned for anything that you need to take care of, including family members.
If the time has to get extended by the employee, we also have short-term disability that's available after 2 weeks. But basically between the time of the first 5 days and the 2 weeks, they can use their sick time or their PTO time. And then if it goes into the past the 10th day, the 2 weeks, they can get short-term disability at that point.
Okay, just bring it back to the board if it starts to become an issue where our staff no longer can afford to be out. If they cannot afford or do not have sick days or vacation days to quarantine for the 10 days, I don't want them to come back in 5, right? So just to bring it back if we need.
So the articulation of this always goes better when Vic is here.
Absolutely.
So the next time we talk about this, Vic will be back, and I'm sure he'll say it better because he always does, right? But knowing Vic, knowing Mr. Quintana and the rest of our HR team, they've got this thing buttoned up. And they've made allowances to protect the employee within the law as much as we can. We also have to balance this against what they call a gift of public funds. And so that's kind of the litmus on how far out we can go with this. So if it becomes a problem, Dr. Vink, we'll absolutely bring it back to the governing board. We'll tee it up with a board update like we always do.
Thank you for the clarification, because my wheels did start spinning about, well, what about this and what about that? So thank you, Dr. Weeks, for bringing it back. So are there any other questions, anybody? Before moving forward. Right, do we have a motion to approve the paid sick leave benefit due to COVID pandemic as a benefit of employment? For the
Jessica
time-
Bueno, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Alicia Vink, second.
Ms. Miriam, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, the motion passes and we will move on to our next item.
Thank you.
H1 for the GIP resolution.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the governing board, this one is mine, or I should say ours. I want to thank you, Mr. Carrillo, for putting the original draft together, and I want to thank you, Ms. Server Blanco, counsel for the district, for reviewing and editing. Not too many edits, a few slight edits. And what you have in front of you is the edited, or I should say the latest draft of the resolution. And Mr. Carrillo, I will turn the context over to you, because this was something that you wanted to bring forward, I think, for some time.
So again, this is just building off of the study session we had with Christine Mackey and understanding GPLETs. And that was put in place so many, as she was talking, we had an understanding that the GPLET is a very complicated economic model that's why we had her here to explain to the board and to the rest of the school district constituents and employees about the impact it has or doesn't have on the school. And so what we have here would be a reiteration of a 2017 decision on the board of opposing GPLETs and continuing that decision going forward. It doesn't cut off our relationship with the city. It doesn't cut off any possible future agreements, as you see that's in the agenda tonight. Again, it makes our statement stand. It makes our statement clear where we stand. However, GPLETs as of right now will still continue, and the district in the financial state it's in will still work to leverage those agreements as long as the city initiates them with the developers.
Mr. Carrillo, I do have a question, point of clarification. In the resolution, it says, be it resolved that this governing board supports a temporary prohibition on the new GPLET agreements initiated by the city of Phoenix for developments located within the Phoenix Elementary School District boundaries. I'm understanding this to be kind of contextual regarding the city council's upcoming work study sessions on GPLET and some of the positions of our community members in support of, am I reading that correctly?
Yeah. And what's also happening too is the city, this is in line with what is process of the city. The city will be looking at GPLETs. They're looking at a policy right now in reference to GPLETs. And so why this stands here before us tonight is to get ahead of that decision so that they can understand where the district stands as they make the decision in the future. I'm thinking October, November.
Would it be prudent, should the board approve a final draft of the resolution, to send a copy of the resolution to council members?
Yes, please. Yes.
Ms. Server Blanco, would you advise the board and bring us home with our resolution, please?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chairman, governing board members. I did work on this. There's one inaccuracy and I've checked. And when a GPLET is granted, it does not increase the tax burden on other citizens. So just less tax. So they don't increase the amount on, say, the neighboring house.
Can you explain that, Ms. Blanco? Because that's not how we've always interpreted.
No, they don't change the tax rates each time they grant a GPLET. The tax rate is the same. So your house or your business is going to be taxed as it normally would be, but the developer is just not contributing as much tax on a developed property.
But that the property tax that the developer is supposed to pay is abatement through the city. So then that bill still gets picked up by the whole property tax
Right.
payers.
So normally on a property tax, the school, say, it's a $10 million building, you get X% of the property tax on that $10 million building. When it's abated, you're not getting any property tax. Okay, but that doesn't mean that anybody else's is increased. There's just less money in the pot. Does that make sense?
So then in that model, then the district is losing out on tax revenue during the abatement period. And what you're saying is that, so here's the way school district finance works, is that we are budget-based, supported by cash. So our school district is not a tax-based system, it's a budget-based system where a portion of the money comes from the local community and a portion of the money comes from the state. In 2011, when they made changes to the legislation, the state no longer picked up the delta based on the issuance of a GPLET to a developer through the city of Phoenix. So the understanding that we've always had for a long time, and the reason we got into this the last time, was because the cash for the empty lot, let's say, had to come from someplace in order to either to fulfill the budget obligation that the district has in order to make its way through the school year. So what you're saying is a little bit counterintuitive. Maybe you can speak a little bit more in detail on how you came to find out this information.
I actually emailed Christine Mackey and asked her the question. I also talked to my partner in Tucson with the governmental entity that we deal with down there. We do a lot of GPLETs, and the tax base doesn't change. The property tax doesn't change. That doesn't mean your funding doesn't come from somewhere else, but the property tax rates don't change when they grant a GPLET. It's just less money. So for the 8 years, you're getting no property tax unless the city requires them to pay you the tax you would have gotten on vacant land. If it's a longer period of at least, say, 25 years, and they changed the law a couple times, so it depends on when the GPLET was developed and approved. But say like today, you will get 36 and a third % of the excise tax that's collected. excise tax is less than property tax, but it's creeping up closer.
So although this is counterintuitive to what we've heard since 2012, I appreciate you doing the additional research. I would also encourage us to keep looking at the math on this, even as we move forward.
Right.
Mr. Carrillo, that makes it even more important that we maintain our relationship with our developers through these GPLIT agreements, consistent with what we're going to be looking at subsequent to the resolution. Ms. Server Blanco, are there any changes to the resolution as you see them that you would recommend to the board?
I would potentially take out the second recital because the third recital says GPLET shortchange school districts of needed tax revenues. That's true. But, you know, the net result is that you get less money.
You said change that? That's in there. Say that again, I'm sorry.
I would probably take out the second recital that says that the property tax then is pushed onto other businesses and residences. But the rest of it I would keep.
I'll defer to Mr. Weeks, Dr. Weeks, sorry. However, again, in terms of thank you for sharing where you got your sources. However, in terms of having seen, part of the conversation with Christine Mackey was there was too many unknowns, and that was one of the unknowns, which is in terms of be it resolved, was having that information, having that impact report sent to us so we wouldn't understand that information, and she would provide us more clarity on an internal audit that they have not yet shared with us.
Yeah, I would say that what you had just said, Ms. Server Blanco, goes against everything I believe the community believes about GPLIT. So I would encourage the city to make that point very, very clear, because for many, many years, the community, in particular, the businesses within the community, have been told and believe that they are picking up the property taxes during the abatement period.
Okay, I did put a call into Ms. Mackey today and she was not able to return my call. I will follow up with her again tomorrow.
I think we could probably also contact the treasurer's office,
Okay.
right? I would say, in terms of the recommendation, the language that you're recommending that we strike, Ms. Server Blanco, I don't know that in good conscience, until we have further information, that it would be good for us to strike that.
Okay.
And then, of course, this is a resolution of the board by the board.
I would agree. I would feel comfortable moving forward on a vote with that line still in there.
Any discussion from the rest of the board as to whether we vote on it tonight or move to table it at a further date?
I think I would prefer to clarify exactly what the language we want to use before making a decision.
I suppose we could wordsmith, I mean, if I were to create a balance, I would put I might consider putting some fuzzy language in there to say something like, the property tax breaks given to developers by the city of Phoenix under GPLIT may push additional tax costs onto the property owners of neighboring homes and businesses. I think if you wanted to get the resolution done tonight, otherwise I agree with Ms. Bueno, you might want to hold off on the resolution until we're crystal clear. My understanding is different from what you're saying. And I would want to make sure that we kind of triangulate the data sources to make sure that everybody, that we're all folks that have an understanding on the math.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Padilla?
I would like for other opinions. So we can decide if anyone feels comfortable sharing their opinions on either moving forward or tabling it.
I think if we add, the language, that kind of protects us from, being direct about the additional tax costs. I'm okay with adding that. Because ultimately, we're still not supporting it. But you see, the problem is that the city just doesn't have enforcement to make sure that the school district will receive the funds that should be allocated to us. So that's why your number one is stating, we're waiting to see what the city is gonna do, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Then can we add that edit to that line and move forward?
What edits is that, Mr. Carrillo?
Again, taking that direct comment about the burden of taxpayers and putting may.
So delete the word pushes and insert may push.
Yes.
You get that, Miriam? What do you think about that, Ms. Server Blanco?
I like that.
And then I know that Blair is retiring from the treasurer's office. I don't know who the new person is. We'll need to go down there and get some additional clarity on the math.
I will.
That part's important to me.
All right. With that, do we have a motion to move forward with approving our GIPLET resolution as amended?
President Carrillo, a motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Alicia Vink, second.
Thank you. Ms. Miriam, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, the motion passes and we will move on to item H2.
Thank you, Madam President. This item is a recommendation from administration to approve a GPLET donation agreement with a developer by the name of Encompass Phoenix. And they are developer of the Phoenix Towers project, and the donation agreement will provide funding for the district to the tune of $420,000 over the next 20 years by way of a $6,000 donation for the first 8 years of the project, and then $31,000 a year for the next 12 years, from 9 to 20. And so the total amount would be $420,000 for the entire life of the project. And that's if it doesn't get extended. I mean, it could also get extended, but the way it stands, it'll be for 20 years. It's also important to note that it's not necessarily a new project. It's something that we have run across before at the district level. But what happened was the project was transferred to a new developer. They started out with a developer by the name of DRI CA Phoenix. And with this agreement, it's actually being put in front of us by the new developer, Encompass Phoenix. So we'd like to recommend the approval of this donation agreement for the Phoenix Elementary School District.
Did we receive donation before the new company took over?
No, we did not. We didn't receive any funding prior to this.
Because it wasn't completed?
Yeah, the abatement doesn't start until they get a certificate of occupancy. So during the construction period, it's normal tax unless the city owns it.
But so they're saying that the property is the 3 towers and right now there's only one. So it's the completion of each tower when they get their certificate of occupancy.
Correct. And then I also wanted to mention is once they start paying excise tax, you do get 36 1/3% of that. So in addition to the 31,000 a year, you'll get in years 9 through 20, you'll get a portion of the excise tax that they pay.
Is there a provision or a method, Mr. Quintana, Ms. Server Blanco, for developers to prepay
Right. This is totally voluntary. The city makes the developer do this. There's nothing in the state statutes that requires them to do that. In the resolution, you said that you wanted some input in what those donations would be. And I think that's an excellent way of you saying, I want it prepaid. Or, let's have a bigger chunk up front, something of that nature. I think for most developers, they're not going to have that extra cash because as Ms. Mackey was talking about, the margins are pretty thin to start with. It's when the development's going and then it's out of the G-Plat, then it really produces some really good property tax.
So I'm sorry, is the G-Plat agreement only monetary, or can we also ask for, let's say, 10% workforce housing for our staff?
This part is just monetary. The resolution talks about, really developing a better relationship with the city so that you've got more input.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve our GIPLET donation agreement as presented?
Reggie Carrillo, I motion.
Do we have a second?
Jessica Bueno, I second.
Thank you. With that, Ms. Mayor, may we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Lisa Vink.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, the motion passes and we will move on to item H3.
Thank you. And also wanted to thank Ms. Blanco for joining us this
Yes,
evening.
thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, members of the governing board, this is I don't want to say routine, every year is different, but this is ASBA's recommended political position moving into this school year. What they're saying is that representatives of the ASBA member boards convene to vote on the kind of the political items that the ASBA wants to promote this year. And that is adequately and equitably funding district schools to at least the national median for pupil funding, preserving and strengthening local control, improving outcomes for all students, requiring public accountability for taxpayer dollars spent on education. These are the things that the ASBA is going to vote on at the delegate assembly. But before the delegate gets to the assembly, each governing board needs to have a discussion and possibly vote to approve these items. And then that delegate goes to the delegate assembly and votes on behalf of the whole board. So the next item after this is who's going to go, right? But this is the board's opportunity to discuss and vote on ASBA's political position for this year.
Thank you. My question, I guess, would be, are we choosing members to go
Not here, but the next one,
at our next meeting? So right now we're voting.
the next item. So H4 is we'll pick a delegate, but this one is, does the board agree that these are the items that the delegate would vote to approve once the delegate gets to the assembly? So this is kind of chunking it out, right? So then the board's they're gonna vote to say, okay, yeah, we like these 4 items, and we think that ASBA should promote these 4 items legislatively.
Okay, that was kind of my concern, wondering how does ASBA have a position on the things that we, I guess, gathered, at a past meeting. So that makes more sense. And this, I do remember when we talked about all of these. So my apologies. Thank you for the clarification. Do we have a motion to approve the ASBA political agenda for 2022?
I just have a question because it says that the annual conference will be held on September 8th through the 10th. But then I'm seeing item number 4 where it says the delegate assembly is September 11th.
Yep, I'll let
Good
Miriam talk
question.
about that. She figured all that out.
That's exactly the way it's stated in the flyer that they sent. The first 3 days are the actual, the meetings and the conferences. And on Saturday is when they're actually gonna want to speak to the delegate. So it's considered 2 separate functions, even though it's all one after the other.
So whoever's going to the law conference will go to those other days, but then and the delegate assembly is always on a Saturday, right? So then whoever you elect as a delegate to go to the assembly doesn't necessarily have to go to the law conference, but they have to show up on Saturday, the 11th, to vote on your behalf.
Thank you for the clarification. I do remember that discussion about a Saturday before. Any other questions? All that, with that said, may we have a roll call vote to approve this, Ms. Marion? I thought we did.
A
Okay.
motion to approve Arizona School Board Association draft 2022 political agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
You gotta give my second.
Now we can proceed with the roll call. My apologies.
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
Hearing that, the motion passes. We'll move on to our next item, which I don't have that page in front of me. H4. As far as selecting our delegates. So do we have any recommendations or nominations, I guess I'd ask?
Well, I am planning to go the 8th through the 10th. The 10th, I'm not too sure, but again, those were optional, and then I can definitely be there on the 11th. I'm not too sure who else can be there, but that opens me up to be someone to volunteer to be a delegate. But also, if anyone else is planning, go ahead. Put your name in.
I'm planning on doing the 8th through the 10th as well, so would be present, can do it, or be an alternate if needed, but also if our president would like to go and vote for us.
I appreciate that. I haven't gone to these events before, but I do think it would be really beneficial for our new board members to be representing our new board, if that's okay, especially since they're volunteer roles. The prior years I participated in this, I don't remember that happening so quick. So I would love to just keep it fluid and go with possibly approving Mr. Carrillo to be our delegate and Ms. Dr. Vink to be our alternate delegate. Perfect. Do we have a motion to move forward with that?
Jessica Bueno, I motion that our delegate is Mr. Carrillo and our backup is Dr. V.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Alicia Vink, second.
Thank you. Do we have a roll call, Ms. Marion?
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
With that, the motion passes and we'll move on to board requests and reports. Do we have any?
I have,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Dr. Mink, Madam Chair, before we leave, I thought I heard a board member requesting some information about the new laptops. Did Nick leave already? Because this would be an appropriate time to celebrate the new laptops that we recently purchased. Rocky, you probably know about that too, right? Yeah. So we want to take a moment to celebrate the IT team with an update on the new laptops that are going to be coming in.
So will we wait for him to come back and he'll explain that?
We'll wait.
Okay. Then as we do that, for me is just referencing to some of the Phoenix I Academy the comments in reference to Phoenix I Academy. I would request the board update on what how we build capacity to meet the needs of the student population that the I Academy is serving right now. That was not planned. It is great. It's awesome that we do have that amount of students. However, I want to know what kind of supports that they do need.
Thank you. I do remember Mr. Fuentes speaking about that, so I look forward to an update as well. Do we have any more? All right, with that, we'll move on to future agenda items, please. I'm sorry, unless we're waiting for Mr. Nick.
Rocky, you want to give a quick update?
There we go. I make sure everybody's good and I come up here and I'm not good. But anyway, so all of the Chromebooks, we purchased 2,600 Chromebooks for all the schools. All of the Chromebooks have arrived except 9 of them. But all of the schools have received the Chromebooks. All of the Chromebooks are ready to be used. So as of right now, all of the schools have received the Chromebooks. Some schools have already started giving them to the kids. So that's pretty much my part of the update. I don't know, Nick, do you have any further information on that? It's just an update on the Chromebook deployment.
Yes. May we have an update on the new Chromebooks that have come in and how?
Yeah, so the
they're being
2,600 Chromebooks have gone out. Some of the cases were delayed, but we didn't want to delay any further on the Chromebooks. So they're all out there, but some without cases at this point. We're also looking at another 200 purchase. And the reason for that is for our growth of I Academy, as well as Faith North, which at the time of the initial purchase, didn't have kindergarten yet. So we're just making sure that in case of a quarantine, every student is one-to-one, ready to go home with the device.
So does that put us at 1-to-1 then, once you get the 214 plus additional?
So it doesn't put us one-to-one with Chromebooks, but it does with our previous Windows devices.
Right.
And those are outdated, needing to be replaced soon. So we're looking, as soon as ESSER 3 comes available, that being one of our very priorities, very first purchase, is to get all Chrome one-to-one, because that will benefit the students, as well as the teachers to have one platform as well. They're just much easier to manage, much easier to use. And then it really cut down on time from the student opening the device, trying to get logged in and getting to the content is, we're talking 10, 20 seconds compared to minutes at some point with those older Windows devices. And so we're really trying to get those Windows devices out, but right now they're functioning as our back end supply inventory to stay one-to-one. We have also identified a solution that can actually churn those old Windows devices into Chromebooks. So they're basically Windows running Chrome OS on top of them. The student opens it up and they don't know the difference really. I mean, some of those old Windows devices even look like Chromebooks. So what the benefit of that is imagine right now you have a school of 500 students. They get 200 Chromebooks. They distribute those 200 Chromebooks bottom up, so kindergarten, first grade, but you hit that second grade that may have 50 students, right? But there's only 20 Chromebooks, and then you've got to put in 30 of those Windows devices, which is tricky for a grade level, especially for a teacher in an actual classroom to have 2 platforms. And so we would use this solution, which we've tested and it's working. And we've told the principals, let us know that bridge, we call it the bridge grade level, where it's between the two devices. And we'll take those, in that example, those 30 Windows devices, turn them into Chromebooks. They're basically running that Chrome OS on top of a Windows machine. And that way, at least all of that grade level, all of those classes have the same experience. So the teacher's not having to try to teach to two different platforms at the same time, which can be tricky.
I appreciate your creativity there.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Nice
And
work.
we're also seeing too that can benefit some of the principals I've been talking to. They're trying to utilize those old Windows devices in a lab setting. And some of the newer applications are having a hard time. They're seeing slowness. So we're recommending for them to also utilize that because Chrome, it's less resource heavy than Windows. Windows is very resource demanding. And so by utilizing those old devices with running Chrome on top could potentially make them run faster because it's not having to, work as much as hard as when they're doing the Windows machines.
Nick, you want to talk a little bit about the vision of the 5G project?
The 5G on
The network.
So that's actually something, we just briefly spoke about in passing, but, just analyzing our whole network as well, making sure that we're on top of being in the classroom as well with all the devices, something that, the pandemic has done and with students going one-to-one and teachers utilizing a lot of applications is that once we do return in person is that a lot of teachers, a lot of students will continue to use devices in the classroom more than prior to the pandemic. And so making sure our infrastructure can handle that. And so making sure our Wi-Fi is adequate. And so, we're yearly looking at, E-rate type stuff that we need to stay on top of. So making sure that the Wi-Fi is adequate, that, you've got a class of 30 students using Wi-Fi and then the class right next to it is also 30 students on Wi-Fi, that there's no breakdown and that, there's always that ability to have a great performance on their device. So also, if you don't mind, I can also touch on real quickly some of the other items we're looking at as well, such as hotspots. Providing hotspots to families is a big topic right now as well. And so, again, for those of you that don't know, I just joined here in June. And so trying to also find out where have we been prior, right? And what have we been doing? And so working with Sherry and Rocky has been, great help in trying to get me caught up and where we're at. And hotspots is one of the topics that we've been talking about. In the past 2 years, there was 9 purchases made of hotspots, 50 here, 100 there. We were chasing, how many do we need? Okay, we need more, we need to purchase more. So we've got 9 different invoices that we're going to continue every month to pay, monitor, and all of that. Then we're talking different devices out there as well from all those different purchases. So a lot of those devices are being outdated. They're not running as well. They're breaking down. We're hearing right now they're no longer functional. And the other part is during the pandemic, this happened in the school district I came from as well. As in the pandemic, kid needs a hotspot. We're rushing to get him a hotspot. Here you go, take it, need it. And there wasn't a lot of monitoring on tracking where it's at, is it being utilized, doesn't they need it anymore, get it back, redistribute it. And so what we're looking at doing is consolidating all of those 9 purchases into one PO, and they're going to device refresh us. And so right now we have just a little over 1,200 hotspots out there. And what this will do is get us the same number, all new devices. And T-Mobile will do that for no charge with those devices, just as long as we continue that yearly contract. So moving into this year's contract with one PO, all the same devices, all new updated models. And then we will also be able to utilize Destiny, which is the system and application that we use to check out library books, and use that to check out Chromebooks, hotspots, headsets, everything that a student might need, and be able to better track where they're at. In the case of a hotspot, also check in with T-Mobile and see which ones are being used. And so if we check 50 out to a school, and then 2 weeks later they say we need more, we'll be able to run reports and see, are all 50 of those checked out? Are all 50 of those being utilized? If not, here's one, Sally checked out, get it to Johnny who does need it, right? And so we're not just continuing to send out, purchase more and send out and not track what's actually being utilized. And that's a big part of the headsets as well. The issue with headsets is some people might think that they're disposable. They have the mindset they are disposable, that here's a headset, take it, and you don't need it back or something like that, right? And so we're really losing track of those. So having that same model, asset tagging them, checking them out, making sure that if they're being checked out, that they're going to someone who's actually using them, and before they actually give them out and be able to get them back as well.
So, Madam Chair, members of the governing board, the reason I bring this up is because next year I'm going to ask that we go for bond. And what I'm seeing in the district is that technology is going to become the biggest single repeatable capital purchase the district will be making in the foreseeable future. The vision of 1-to-1 kind of pales in the new vision of 2-to-1. We should be striving for a 2-to-1 ratio for our laptops for our students. As we load more of our curriculum onto into the cloud, students need to have a device that they can have at home, that they can be mobile with them, and then a secure device at school, much like having 2 sets of textbooks under an adoption. So that's what you're going to be seeing as part of the vision, and continuing to upgrade the network so that, like what Nick is talking about, and that's parsing out the Wi-Fi so that everybody has high rates of speed, so that you're not sharing wireless connectivity through just a few devices around, that you have different, what do you call that, Nick? You've got different
frequency channels
frequencies
that you're able to run the Wi-Fi off of. So instead of sharing frequencies, you're able to have dedicated to the same access point and have better performance. So things like that, yes. And I agree with the concept of getting 2-to-1, which we're already kind of striving for, and getting to in small steps, utilizing things like the Emergency Connectivity Fund. And the Emergency Connectivity Fund is, if you're not familiar with it, is similar to E-rate, where E-rate is providing funds for the school in the sense of access points network at school, where the Emergency Connectivity Fund is now at home. So if a kid has a need of device or connectivity, we're able to utilize that. The first, they call it ECF, Emergency Connectivity Fund, open and closed this summer. And so we did, with the help of Linda Jeffries, communicated out to families, fill out a survey, and we were able to put in the application for around 800 needs. And out of that, there was 600 needs for devices. So they answered the survey as, I don't have a device at home, but I do have connectivity. And there was about 163 that answered no to no connectivity, no device. And so how do we fill that? And so being strategic, thoughtful about how do we best do that, instead of sending them a Chromebook and a hotspot, we now got to manage 2 devices, not only them, but us as well, right? So thinking outside the box, we looked at, and we've put in the application for 163 LTE Chromebooks for those students. And so what that means is, just like your cell phone has its own data plan, the Chromebook will have its own data plan through T-Mobile, just like the hotspot. So it's basically merging those 2 devices into one. This is a small chip like your phone has into the Chromebook, and the student can now utilize that Chromebook at home, in transit, or really anywhere you have cell data. And so just one more aspect to getting back to that 2-to-1, where we've got devices at home and in the classroom as well. And the ECF actually yesterday announced the second round. So we'll be able to reach those families who weren't able to fill out that survey in the summer as well.
Oh, I would just like to put on your radar, if you weren't aware, the City of Phoenix Housing Department is working on providing Wi-Fi to all their residents. So that would impact our students at Lowell, Dunbar, and Edison.
It's great to hear. Thank you for the updates. I'm wondering how, I guess how else we might be communicating all of this to our families too, to make sure they're able to take advantage of those emergency broadband services and things like that. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it was hard during the summer, right? Because the kids weren't, the teachers weren't here. And so there was communication that went out. Again, Linda helped out with emails, texts on the website, social
Nice.
media. But again, it's hard without the kids actually here. So now with the teachers here, what we can do is, when I was looking past in what Troy had done previously at the beginning of the pandemic, was providing lists, class lists, and the teachers were actually making calls. At that time, there wasn't any need for emergency connectivity fund, but it was the need, who needs devices, who needs hotspots. So in the same sense, we can do that again now, where we provide the school with their class list with contact information, so your parents, all their phone numbers right there in one place, so they don't have to go searching for it for each student, and document it in the same form, and then we can use that form to then make our application to the second round.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Nick. And we definitely remember how new you are. So we appreciate how easily you fall right in line with walking into the room and answering all the questions and giving us the business. So we are aware of that, and we do appreciate and know how much work this has been for you.
Thank you. Yeah, and just last one, I just want to say thank you for my team too. The MIS team that I came into is just fantastic, and they've been a great help. And it's crazy time right now at the beginning of the school year. But I just want to make sure that they're aware of my appreciation to them too. So, thank you, guys.
Likewise, the feeling is mutual.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Weeks, for making sure this update happens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thought that I heard somebody ask about the technology update. Maybe I was wrong, but I'm glad we had it. Thank you.
Agreed. With that said, we can move on to future agenda items. Do we have any?
I have two. As we move through COVID in person, I would like to hear more from our students and request that we move forward with adding a student representative to the governing board in some way, shape, or form, and add that to a future agenda if we need to vote on it or something. I'm not sure how we do that.
No, Dr. Gonzalez has an update on the Superintendent's Advisory Council, which is made up of students, or will be made up of students.
Perfect. And then my second one is just to add to an agenda or get a projected date for an ASBA board self-evaluation and a superintendent evaluation training.
Agreed. I definitely would echo that. And I would like to just call it more for my request. I guess I would like to echo it as just a request to see what, I guess, what other associations would be able to present to the board as far as being related to something like ASBA. So that way we get a full round of information, I guess. Any other requests? Hearing none, we will move to adjourn at 8:39. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:39 this evening?
Alicia Vink, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes. Have a good night, everyone, and thank you to everybody who
Night.
participated.